to Seasons of Life with Wendy Burks. I'm so glad you're joining me again today. I hope and pray that this study has been a blessing to you. I know it has been for me. I know that the Lord wanted me to go through these lessons again and look back in my old notes, because I know how much God has used it in my own life during this season of uncertainty that we are all going through right now. I just want you to know that I'm praying for you. I'm praying for your families and for your states. I know many friends in many states where they are opening up and things are starting to reflect somewhat of a normalcy. Here in our state, we are not. We still have some time to go, I have no doubt. But you know what? I'm not worried. I'm not fretted about it at all, because I know the one who is in ultimate control, and I trust him. God knew what state I was going to live in during this time of uncertainty. He knew what obstacles we were going to face, and I am not choosing to look at it as an obstacle, but rather an opportunity that I can let his light shine through me. And I am really praying for Christians today. It is an opportunity for us as Christians to show what Christ-likeness really is. And it's really not about, I'm sorry, but it's not about pitching fits and throwing a fuss and creating a scene. Instead, it shows all the fruit of the Spirit. And yes, I do believe there comes a time that we have to do a hard thing. But I love how we learn through this book of Esther. And we'll talk more about it this today and tomorrow in chapter 8, how Esther handles what comes next. So let's look at Esther chapter 8, verse 1. Remember how I said that God can reverse even the most drastic or desperate of situations? Well, he does just that. Look at Esther chapter 8, verse number 1. On that day, the very same day, on that day, remember, Haman was hanged on the gallows he had created or built for Mordecai. And on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther, the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. Remember all that time they were afraid to say who they were and that they were Jews, and nobody knew that Mordecai was really her uncle? Well, it all comes out now. And Esther says, this is my uncle. He is a Jew. Remember, he's always referred to as Mordecai the Jew. And all of this is starting to come out. And do you know what the very first thing, what I realize in this verse, and I know this to be true because I watch it time and time again in the lives of the individuals that God brings through our schools of discipleship. And I think it's because it's kind of more with a magnifying glass on it, and I see it loudly and more clearly, is this lesson, loud and clear. God rewards those who are faithful. It's just true. I know he's done it in my own life. I've seen him do it in the lives of others, and here he clearly does it in Esther and Mordecai's life. Let's go on in verse number 2. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and he gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Do you see what just happened here? It was given to Esther, and she turned around and gave it to Mordecai. And God rewards those who are faithful. I love this part of the story. I love how that here in this particular part, Mordecai was the one in the background and Esther was up front, and things are going to switch around here. And many times as women, we are the ones in the background. You know, it's true. But ladies, I'm just here to tell you that God rewards those who are faithful. And sadly, I think that too many times we picture that only as money. And we think that if God's going to reward me, it's going to be in monetary form. Can I just tell you, and can you just write this down somewhere, that money is the cheapest of God's blessings? It really is true. There are so many things that God can do for us and through us. And the blessings, those that are included, are just far better than you could ever imagine. Far bigger than you could ever imagine. Your Father in heaven wants to bless you with those gifts. It is his desire as your father to give you those gifts, just like you and I as a mom wanted to give gifts to our children. And the Bible says, as a father wants to give gifts to his children. Don't you know that to be true? And so many times, I remember when my kids were growing up, and we'd be in the grocery store, and they would want a candy bar. Don't you just love how they put all those toys and candy bars right up at the cash register where you're waiting in line? And, you know, smart thinking on the marketing side there. But, you know, so many times I wanted to get my kid a gift. I wanted to do something special for them. But so many times they didn't respond correctly. You know what I mean? Maybe they threw a fit for it. Maybe they showed themselves. Maybe they didn't have a good attitude, and therefore I couldn't reward them right then. But God rewards those who are faithful. God rewards those who are humble. God rewards those who stay the course. Here is a situation where God orchestrates Mordecai to be recognized and honored and blessed, but beyond what he could have ever imagined. You know, I have an excerpt from the book that I wrote, Finding Security in an Insecure World. It's all of these lessons put into a book. You can buy it on our website. If you go to rurecovery.com/shop. And if you look on my YouTube channel, you'll actually see a few places where I have put the address to go to buy the book. But feel free to reach out to me and I'll give it to you personally. But I'm going to read another excerpt here because I think it's important for us as women to realize that just because you're in the background doesn't mean that God doesn't realize what you're doing. So I'm going to read this. Behind the scenes. Mordecai was in the background up until this time. Remember what happened to him in chapter 2? He was completely overlooked for saving King Ahasuerus' life, but he remained faithful. He encouraged Esther to do the right thing. He trusted God, though his life was also in jeopardy, and the king's right-hand man clearly was determined to destroy him. Do you ever feel that don't you feel that is your role many times, to stay behind the scenes? Many women play the role that Mordecai did in this story. We are often the driving forces, playing the part of the encourager, the motivator, the helper, the advisor. Women counsel, admonish, build up, and suggest. This is why God created Eve, to be a help for Adam. Too many times, however, women think that their role is only to be meek and quiet, never speaking up or using the gifts that God has given them. This is another area where Satan has deceived us, especially we Christian women. We have such a fear of being labeled as loud and bossy that we fail to help when it is needed. Esther gives us a great example here. She gave truth, yet she did it in a very respectful way. She gave encouragement, yet she did not demand. She motivated, yet she did not try to take charge. She was what God calls a helpmeet, a help made especially for her husband. She was exactly what Ahasuerus needed. This chapter in Esther shows us that God knows what is really going on. The whole world may not see what you've done, how you've prayed, what you thought, how you've helped, but God surely does. Here is a situation where God orchestrates Mordecai to be recognized and honored and blessed beyond what he could have ever imagined. You may have thought a few chapters back that Mordecai was sort of overlooked in the story. This is just a good reminder to all of us that God is fully aware of all that you do. Don't ever lose heart. Don't ever think God doesn't see. Don't ever think that just because nobody ever noticed what you did, that God didn't notice, because he did. He saw it all. Keep encouraging. Keep doing your job. Keep advising, doing it in a respectful way. Please don't. I know I have a tendency. It's my flesh. It comes out too. I want to be bossy. I want to tell everybody what to do. I see it so clearly. Why don't they see that I see it so clearly? Why don't they want to hear what I have to say? Maybe it's because I'm not being Spirit-led. Maybe it's because I'm not walking in the Spirit. And when my advice comes out or my truth comes out, it's done in my flesh. And that's ugly. And it's bad, ladies. It's not pretty at all. And it doesn't make God look good. But when I do it under the influence of the Holy Spirit, God uses it the way he wants to use it. And though I may not get acknowledged, and though my name may not be mentioned, It doesn't matter because he knows. He is full aware of what took place. He knows my heart, but I have to stay under the influence of the Holy Spirit or else it does not look good. Let God use you. He rewards those who are faithful. It's okay to be in the background, but build those around you. Don't tear them down. Build them, encourage them, lift them up, and do it wisely. The second thing that I see here takes place in verse number 3. It says, and Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. You know what I see here is the fact that, her life was okay. I mean, she had been given the house of Haman. Mordecai comes in, and Mordecai's there now, and she's safe. The king knows, but that wasn't really her goal. That's not the whole picture. Sometimes we just get, oh, well, look, God bless me, I'm okay. But it's more than that. It's all of her people. It's the entire Jewish nation. This edict is still out there. There is no way that the king, according to the law, can say, oh, nope, wipe that out, forget it, it's not there. He can't say, I changed my mind. It's already signed. It's already out there. It's going to take place. So here's what I learned. Again, and I know I've brought this up so many times, but I'm going to say it again. In the insecure world in which we live, godly wisdom is imperative. It's so easy to just sit back and go, okay, whew, everything's all right now. Everything's okay now because I'm safe, or I got this money and this is better, and I'm taken care of, so everything's okay. I am so thankful that Esther showed us here in these verses that her focus is not on herself. Her focus is on others. Others, Lord, yes, others. Let this my motto be. Help me to live for others, that I might live like thee. I'm so thankful for the practical education I got at the Bible college, where that was the motto. That was what we were taught to live. That's how we were taught to live. And those of you who are watching, who were there with me or went after me, you know it to be true. Mrs. Marlene Evans taught me to love people and like things. Not like people and love things. Don't just get pulled away by a shiny object or a check that gets put into your bank account, or not, as some is the case. And we get focused on money and material things, and that's really not where our focus needs to be. It needs to be on people, and it needs to be on others and what others need. That's how Jesus lived when he was here, was it not? And I love that that's where Esther's focus is. Let's look at verses 4, 5, and 6 as we continue on, and we see that Esther was not distracted. I mean, here is just literally everything that Haman had has now been given to her. She now, for the first time, she's more than just a woman in the harem. She actually has some responsibilities. She actually is queen. She actually can advise, and more than ever, she needs godly wisdom. And let's look what happens in verses 4, 5, and 6. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it please the king, if I have found favor in his sight, and if the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come into my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Esther not only came to him on behalf of her people, she came with a solution. She didn't just say, oh, fix this, please fix this. She wasn't whining. She was respectful, and she had a plan. She came prepared with a plan. I admire this so much in Esther. She isn't just begging her husband to figure out a way. The Bible has never advocated, by the way, that women be empty-headed ninnies. Look at the women of Proverbs 31. look at the women like Lydia and Mary and Phoebe and Miriam and Deborah and Jael and Esther and those other biblical women who didn't just wring their hands and hope that somebody bigger and stronger than them came up with a good plan. She had a solution. And she brought it before her husband, the king. And she said, could you do this? You see, he can't say, oh, I didn't write that other decree. But what he can do is he can write a new one. And he can say, okay, yes, this went out there, but not only can you kill the Jews, but I am now making it okay. This decree is going to say that they can fight you. And so guess what? We're going to get into it in the next lesson because this changes a lot of things here. This is going to look a lot different. And now the Jews have to be prepared. And we'll get into that in the next lesson. But can I just tell you, ladies, that when we, and this is what I see, this is what I'm going to close this lesson with. And I hope you get this and you see this. And you see it loud and clear through the life of Esther, through the life of Mordecai. And that is this. When we behave in godly ways, God can work most powerfully through us. When we walk in the Spirit, we'll not fulfill the lusts of the flesh. It's not about what I think. It's not about what I want to do. It's not about me fighting for my rights. It's about me letting him lead and letting him do it through me. And he could use me to be a part of a solution. He can use me to speak truth to someone who may listen. You know, we talked about it. The king didn't have to listen to Esther. He was king. He didn't have to take her advice. He was king. But I'm here to tell you that I believe that the only reason that the king listened to Esther was because of the power of God. Yes, it helped that her reputation preceded her. Yes, it helped that she had gained his favor. Yes, I'm sure it helped that she was pretty, I'm guessing. I don't know. But my guess is, and what I truly believe, is that King Ahasuerus listened to Esther and later to Mordecai because God led him to. The king's heart is in the hands of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. And today, ladies, our leaders' hearts are in the hands of the Lord. Whether they're godly or ungodly, God can turn them the way he wants them to go. And God can use us to speak truth to them. But we must do it respectfully. We must do it by being Spirit-led. And we must do it the way that pleases God. Seek his face. Ask him, God, what can I do? God, how can I make a difference? I can tell you this, I know for a fact, it's not by sowing discord on social media. I promise. I have no doubt. Please stop doing that if you are. Please seek God's face. Please let God use you because he can and he will if you'll let him. And we'll follow the example set to us by Queen Esther. Join me tomorrow as we get in, because the next thing we're going to talk about, and this is so very important, is we do have to be prepared to fight sometimes. That's what the Jewish people had to do. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. So join me. See you then.